So I have a funny story about this exact thing, but it's not about a client, it's about me. So a little over 10 years ago, it's just been like 13 now, I got a reading from John Edwards, like the John Edwards. He told me all kinds of things that were coming up and things that he saw me doing. And I was like, that doesn't even seem right. Now, keep in mind, this was before I was actually an active practitioner. I was learning tarot cards, I was learning things, but I was not an active practitioner, nor had I gone through development at this point. That's a whole other funny story in and of itself connected to John Edward. But basically, it was a psychic reading, not a mediumship reading, which at the time, I didn't actually understand the difference between the two. And keep in mind, I had idolized him since the early 90s when he first started doing Crossing Over on TV. So I had in my head this whole how things were going to play out, my loved ones were going to come through. Nope. Because it was only a psychic reading. That's all I won. I didn't win a mediumship reading. So basically, he reads me for filth, tells me all the things I'm going to fail at in life over the next several years and all these choices I'm going to make that were kind of vague and didn't quite make sense, but did, if that makes sense. Yeah, I was mad. I was so upset and disappointed, and to the point where I was like, I'm so glad I didn't pay for that. He wasn't even nice about it. He was absolutely wonderful about it. When I look back, I could see as a practitioner now what I know. He was awesome. I was the problem. I had expectations for that reading that were not met. And then also, I wasn't actually ready to hear truth about a lot of things. So now he didn't allow any of his readings, they're not recorded. Plus, this was before Zoom, this is before anything big, it was all on the phone. So I was just taking notes the whole time. I was so mad, I closed my notebook and I put it away. And I ended up finding that notebook again about a year later. Newsflash, he was right about literally everything, but it wasn't what I thought it all meant. And it took me stepping away from that reading and the presumptions that I had of the psychic predictions that he was sending my way, right? But I will say, thank goodness, the first thing he said to me was, you're going to do what I do, because that was the intention. And I'm pretty sure that's why I won that reading, because Spirit was like, oh my God, here we go. Here's your sign. When are you going to do it? Unfortunately, I'm not in a position to just email John Edward or to call him up and be like, hey, guess what happened? I'm not in that position. But it's pretty crazy to think that even I, who was such a believer and wanted so bad to hear things, even it didn't land with me. So this is one of the reasons I have so much grace for people who, when they receive readings, it may not land, it may not stick, it may not make sense to them, it might even upset them. And I just sometimes will tell them about my story. Sometimes the information just doesn't make sense, but it's to give you a heads up for when these things come across your path. Also, my dog agrees. I also have had clients come back months later and go, you know what? I thought what you told me was kind of crazy. I didn't believe any of it, or I couldn't quite wrap my mind around it. And then they give me the breakdown of how it all played out and how it all came true, but not necessarily in the way that they thought it meant. So I'm sorry that happened to you at first, but I'm glad that they did come back and say, oh, by the way, you got it right. Because we don't always get that. We don't always know how it actually lands long term. So thanks for sharing your thoughts.